Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty fascinating today. We're looking at the 10 richest people in the world as of, well, just a few days ago, January 1st, 2025.
A real-time snapshot of the global wealth landscape should be interesting.
Definitely. But we're not just going to rattle off names and numbers, are we?
No, not at all. We're going deeper. Like, who are these individuals? How they amass such incredible fortunes? And what are they actually doing with all that wealth?
Exactly. So kicking things off, we've got to start with the person at the very top, right? Elon Musk.
Ah, yes. A name synonymous with ambition and, well, a bit of controversy too, I suppose.
$432 billion. I mean, that's just staggering. But this isn't someone who just sits back and counts his money, is he? He's got Tesla, SpaceX.
He's constantly pushing boundaries. Rebranded Twitter to X, too.
Right. Plus the Boring Company, Neuralink, and now this XAI venture. It's like he's trying to revolutionize every industry he can get his hands on.
He's certainly not afraid of a challenge. And with Musk, it's important to remember his wealth is very closely tied to Tesla's performance.
Yeah, when their stock goes up, his net worth skyrockets. What was it? Back in 2020 when Tesla joined the S&P 500.
That was a huge moment, made Tesla the largest company ever to be added to that index, a real sign of stability, growth potential. And of course, just a month later, Musk briefly became the world's richest person.
Briefly, yeah.
No.
Goes up and down with Tesla stock. But it really highlights the power of that one company.
Absolutely. It's a driving force behind his wealth.
Speaking of driving forces, we can't forget about the whole Twitter or X saga.
Yeah.
That was a wild ride.
Oh, definitely sent ripples throughout the market. Remember, he offered $44 billion for it, then tried to back out, got sued.
Countersued. It was a whole back and forth. What a roller coaster. I wonder what that did to his finances.
Well, he planned to fund part of it with his own capital. Even sold some Tesla shares, if I recall correctly.
So the uncertainty surrounding the deal must have had an impact on Tesla's stock then.
Absolutely. And ultimately, his net worth. It wasn't until late 2022 that the deal finally went through. 79% stake in the company now.
What do you think his long-term vision for X is? Any guesses?
Well, that's a million-dollar question, isn't it? But one thing's for sure, it's going to be a major player in the social media landscape. No doubt about that.
Okay, so we've got electric cars, space exploration, social media domination. What's next? Underwater cities.
Well, while we wait for Musk's next big move, let's shift gears a bit and look at someone who's been quietly building an empire of his own, Jeff Bezos.
Ah, yes. Amazon.
Exactly. Now, his net worth might be a tad lower than Musk's $239 billion, but Bezos has a different kind of influence, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. He's taken Amazon from a little online bookstore.
Yeah.
Started in a garage, wasn't it?
Classic entrepreneurial story, that. And now it's predicted to become the world's biggest retailer, bigger than Walmart even.
It's incredible. And it's not just books anymore, is it? They've got groceries with Whole Foods, pharmacy services. It's like they sell everything.
Bezos really tapped into something there, saw a gap in the market, and relentlessly pursued his vision. And we can't forget the impact of the pandemic on Amazon's growth.
Oh, right. Everyone's stuck at home relying on online shopping more than ever.
Exactly. Amazon was perfectly positioned for that. Stock prices soared. Bezos's wealth, well, you know the rest.
But he hasn't just focused on retail domination. He founded Blue Origin, too, right? His own space exploration company. Even took a trip to space himself.
Back in 2021, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, and let's not forget about the super yacht.
The Kourou. $500 million, they say?
Bezos clearly has diverse interests. But stepping down as CEO in 2021, do you think that was part of a bigger plan?
Perhaps. He remains the executive chair. His imprint on the company is undeniable. It's interesting, though, comparing his approach to Musk's. Musk seems to thrive on being involved in multiple ventures all at once. Bezos seems more focused, dedicated to building and expanding Amazon.
Okay, so we've got the two heavyweights at the top. Now, for someone who's practically synonymous with social media, Mark Zuckerberg.
Facebook. Or should I say Meta?
Right. $207 billion. Another massive figure. He created Facebook back in his Harvard dorm room, right?
Back in 2004. Hard to believe how far it's come. It's evolved into Meta now, this huge umbrella company. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Oculus.
Talk about a digital empire.
Yeah.
And Facebook's advertising revenue model, it's been incredibly successful.
Absolutely. But it's interesting to see how he's using his wealth for philanthropy, too, through the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative.
Right. He and his wife, Priscilla Chan, They pledged to donate 99% of their Facebook shares to that, didn't they?
A massive undertaking, focusing on some really important issues: education, criminal justice reform, affordable housing,
Yeah.
even disease eradication.
It's really quite something. You have to think about the responsibility that comes with that level of wealth. What would you do if you had that kind of power?
That's a question we could probably spend hours discussing. But for now, let's move on to someone who took a slightly less conventional path to billions. Larry Ellison, co-founder of Oracle.
Oracle. Now, that's a name I haven't heard in a while.
A bit more under the radar than the likes of Facebook, perhaps. But Oracle is actually the world's second largest software company.
Really? I had no idea.
Ellison's story is pretty inspiring, actually. He's a college dropout, worked his way up as a computer programmer, and eventually co-founded Oracle back in 1977.
Wow, so he's been in the tech game for a long time.
He has, and his net worth, $192 billion. Not bad for a college dropout, eh?
Not bad at all.
Yeah.
He seems to have a bit of an independent streak, though, doesn't he? Joining and then leaving Tesla's board, focusing his philanthropy on medical research.
Definitely marches to the beat of his own drum. And Oracle itself has grown massively through acquisitions. Bought companies like Sun Microsystems, Cerner.
Smart business moves. Now, speaking of someone who knows a good opportunity when they see it, Bernard Arnault,
Ah, yes. The luxury goods king.
head of LVMH,
Yeah.
the biggest luxury goods company in the world.
$176 billion. Owns brands like Louis Vuitton, Hennessy, Sephora, all those names synonymous with luxury and exclusivity.
It's interesting, though. How does someone with a background in engineering end up building an empire in luxury goods?
Recognizing potential, I suppose. Seizing the moment. Arnault initially worked in construction, but saw the untapped potential in the luxury market.
So he just jumped in.
Took control of LVMH back in the late 80s, transformed it into the powerhouse it is today through a series of strategic acquisitions, brilliant brand management. He understood that people are willing to pay a premium for quality and exclusivity.
And built an entire business empire around that principle. Clever. Okay, so we've gone from software to luxury handbags and champagne. Now, back to the world of tech.
Back to where it all began, in a way, with Larry Page, co-founder of Google.
Google. Hard to imagine a world without it now.
Absolutely. Their search engine changed how we access information completely. And Page's net worth, $168 billion.
Wow. And they haven't just stopped at search, have they? They bought YouTube, developed the Android operating system, restructured into Alphabet.
That's right. Alphabet became the holding company for even more ambitious ventures. Page himself has invested in some pretty interesting things.
Like what?
Space exploration through planetary resources. Flying car companies, even.
Flying cars.
Yeah,
Sounds like something out of science fiction. But I guess with this kind of money, anything is possible.
perhaps. Speaking of pushing boundaries, we can't forget the man who essentially brought personal computers into our homes, Bill Gates.
A legend. Even after stepping down from Microsoft and Berkshire Hathaway, he's still worth $159 billion.
Co-founded Microsoft with Paul Allen back in 1975. Essentially made personal computers a staple in offices and homes globally.
And they've expanded so much since then. Email services, gaming systems, cloud services.
A true technology giant. And I think what's particularly inspiring is how Gates has shifted his focus to philanthropy through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yeah, he and his former wife, Melinda French Gates, they've dedicated their foundation to tackling some of the biggest global issues: poverty, disease, education.
And let's not forget the Giving Pledge. He partnered with Warren Buffett on that, encouraging other billionaires to commit to donating a significant portion of their wealth to charitable causes.
It's really quite remarkable how he's using his fortune to make a difference in the world. Okay, now for Bill Gates' partner in crime, so to speak, Sergey Brin.
Google's other half. Quite a story, actually. He immigrated to the U.S. from Moscow as a child. Years later, co-founded Google with Larry Page at Stanford.
Another dorm room to billions story.
Pretty much. His net worth, currently sitting at $158 billion, a testament to Google's enduring success.
Think about Google Workspace alone. Gmail, Drive, Docs, essential tools for so many of us. And then they moved into hardware too.
Yeah.
Pixel phones, Nest devices.
They're everywhere. And like many of the others we've talked about, Brin is heavily involved in philanthropy, significant donations to Parkinson's research, for example.
Another cause close to his heart, I believe. It's great to see these individuals using their platforms and wealth to support causes they're passionate about. Okay, before we wrap up this first part of our billionaire deep dive, there's one more person we need to talk about. Someone who took a less conventional path to success, perhaps. Steve Ballmer.
Ah, yes. Microsoft's 30th employee. Can you imagine? He worked his way up to become CEO, oversaw big acquisitions like Skype.
And he's still Microsoft's largest individual shareholder, even after stepping down as CEO.
That's right, $147 billion. Not to mention, he owns the Los Angeles Clippers. Quite the portfolio.
Talk about diversifying. His story shows there are multiple paths to success, even within the same company. He wasn't a founder like Bill Gates, but he played a pivotal role in shaping Microsoft's growth.
He and Gates didn't always see eye to eye, though, did they? Especially regarding Microsoft's move into hardware.
Some tension there, from what I recall. But still, Ballmer's impact on the tech world is undeniable. Okay, so we've covered 9 of the 10 richest people in the world, and they've all been tech giants. But for our last billionaire in this segment, let's change gears completely.
Time for the legendary investor, Warren Buffett.
Yes, the Oracle of Omaha.
Famous for his long-term value investing approach. Buys companies he believes are undervalued and holds on to them. His company, Berkshire Hathaway, is a perfect example of that strategy in action.
And Berkshire Hathaway is a bit of an anomaly, isn't it? Owns a crazy diverse portfolio of companies. Insurance, energy, railroads, even consumer products.
Exactly. He's got a real knack for identifying companies with strong fundamentals and letting them do their thing.
He's famously skeptical of things like Bitcoin, though, isn't he?
Very much so. Prefers to stick with what he knows and understands. And of course, we can't talk about Buffett without mentioning his philanthropy.
Right. Pledged to donate the majority of his wealth, mostly through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Incredible. So there we have it. The 10 richest people in the world. Quite a diverse group.
We've got tech titans, a luxury goods magnate, a legendary value investor. But there's a common thread, wouldn't you say? Incredible drive, vision, and ability to see opportunities that others miss.
It's really quite remarkable. A lot to take in.
It is. So in our next segment, we'll dive into some of the themes that emerged from these stories and see what they tell us about the world of wealth and influence today.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Going through those stories. I mean, it's like their influence. It goes way beyond their bank accounts.
Oh, absolutely. These are people shaping industries, pioneering new technologies, even taking on global problems like poverty, disease. It's a different level of power.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just the money itself. It's what they can do with it. The power to innovate, disrupt, create a legacy. And it's pretty clear that technology is like the driving force behind a lot of this wealth, especially in this century. 8 out of 10 of those billionaires made their fortunes in tech.
It just highlights how much the digital age has transformed the world, really. E-commerce, social media, cloud computing, all these things have fundamentally changed how we live, how we work, and these individuals, they've been leading the charge.
It's crazy to think about the sheer impact of companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook. Amazon revolutionized the way we shop. Google's become the go-to for information. Facebook connected, billions of people worldwide?
And then you've got the likes of Tesla pushing the boundaries with electric vehicles, SpaceX making space travel a reality. It's a whole other scale of innovation.
It really makes you wonder what the future holds with these minds at work. But it's also important to remember, not everyone on that list made their money in tech.
Right. We can't forget about Bernard Arnault with his luxury goods empire and Warren Buffett, the king of value investing. They represent a different kind of wealth creation, one that's built on, quality, craftsmanship, long-term vision, things that have stood the test of time.
Arnault's LVMH proves people still crave luxury and exclusivity. And Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. It's been consistently outperforming the market for decades. Shows that slow and steady wins the race, I guess.
It's a good reminder that while tech is a major force right now, it's not the only path to success. And speaking of paths to success, another theme that kind of stood out to me from these stories is the role of philanthropy, especially among the super wealthy.
Yeah, it's something we touched on with a few individuals, but it's definitely a bigger conversation. You have Bill Gates and Warren Buffett who've really championed giving back, encouraging others to do the same.
The Giving Pledge is a great example of that. Hundreds of billionaires committing to donate a huge chunk of their wealth to charity. It's a powerful movement, acknowledging the responsibility that comes with that level of wealth.
And it's not just about writing checks either. A lot of these billionaires are actively involved in their philanthropic work, using their knowledge, their influence, to tackle some of the world's biggest problems.
Yeah, like Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chen's Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, they're going after some really complex issues. Education reform, criminal justice reform, disease eradication. That's more than just throwing money at a problem. That's using their resources to try and create real change.
Or Sergey Brin, who's given millions to Parkinson's research. It's inspiring to see these individuals using their wealth to make a difference. Makes you think, what would you do if you had that kind of power, those resources?
It's a big question. What kind of legacy would you want to leave behind? What problems would you try to solve?
And that kind of ties into another interesting thing we see with these billionaires, building a lasting legacy. A lot of them seem driven to create something that will have a positive impact long after they're gone.
It's not just about accumulating wealth. It's about creating something that outlasts you, something that makes a difference. Like Jeff Bezos with his 10,000-year clock project.
A clock designed to run for 10,000 years. That's some serious long-term thinking. And then you've got Elon Musk with his whole plan to colonize Mars.
They're not just building businesses, they're trying to shape the future. It's kind of exciting and a little daunting.
It is. But let's shift gears a bit here. I mean, we've talked about the dominance of technology, the rise of philanthropy, this focus on legacy. But what does all this mean for the rest of us? It's easy to get caught up in the numbers, the scale of their achievements, and feel, well, a little overwhelmed.
I get it. Their lives can seem so far removed from our own. But I think the important thing to remember is they all started somewhere. They had ideas, they took risks, they worked incredibly hard.
None of them were born billionaires.
Well,
They built their fortunes through talent, determination, and yeah, maybe a little bit of luck along the way. But their stories show that even in a world as crazy as ours, it's still possible to achieve incredible things.
Exactly. So instead of feeling intimidated, we should be inspired. Their stories are proof that with hard work, innovation, and a willingness to take chances, anything is possible.
And it's important to remember that wealth isn't the only measure of success. There are so many ways to make a meaningful contribution to the world. Through our work, our communities, just being good people.
These billionaires might be at the top of the wealth pyramid, but their stories are ultimately about human potential, the power of ideas, the impact we can have on the world.
So let's not get lost in the billions. Let's focus on the lessons we can learn from these individuals and use those lessons to fuel our own ambitions, whatever those ambitions might be. Because at the end of the day, these stories aren't just about wealth. They're about the human spirit, our capacity for innovation, creativity, generosity.
And that's something we can all learn from, be inspired by, regardless of our bank account balance.
It's funny. As we've been talking about these individuals, I've been thinking about how different their backgrounds are, their paths to success. We have college dropouts like Ellison and Gates, who built tech empires, engineers like Arnault, who found their niche in luxury goods, academics like Page and Brin, who turned their research into a global phenomenon.
It really shows there's no single formula for success, doesn't it? It's not about where you come from, what you studied. It's about drive, vision, being able to spot an opportunity and seize it.
And resilience.
Yeah.
Don't forget resilience. A lot of these people face setbacks and challenges, but they pushed through, achieved amazing things.
Think about Elon Musk and that whole Twitter acquisition mess, very public, very messy. Or Jeff Bezos, whose initial vision for Amazon was met with a lot of doubt.
Right. Their stories highlight that success is rarely a straight line. There are going to be obstacles, setbacks, but it's how you handle those challenges that defines you.
It's about learning from mistakes, adapting to change, and never giving up on your vision.
Now, while we're talking about challenges, I think it's also important to acknowledge that this level of wealth, it doesn't come without its downsides.
That's a good point. These people are constantly under scrutiny. Every move they make is analyzed, dissected. They're under immense pressure to maintain their success, and the line between their public and private lives can get very blurry.
And then there's the whole issue of wealth inequality, its impact on society. That's a big, complicated conversation.
It is, and one that deserves more attention, for sure. How do we balance the innovation, the progress that these people drive, with the need for a fairer distribution of wealth and opportunity? It's a question we need to figure out.
But for now, I think it's important to recognize the impact they've had, both positive and negative. They've created jobs, advanced technology, contributed a lot to philanthropy, inspired countless others to chase their dreams.
At the same time, they've raised some important questions about wealth, power, responsibility in the 21st century.
Ultimately, their stories are a reflection of the world we live in, a snapshot of the forces shaping everything around us.
And they leave us with a lot to think about. What does the future hold for these individuals? for the industries they represent? How will their wealth and influence continue to shape the world?
And maybe the most important question of all, what can we learn from their journeys? What can we apply to our own lives?
Definitely something to ponder.
I think that's a good place to wrap up this part of our deep dive into the world's 10 richest people. We've covered a lot. The rise of technology, the importance of philanthropy, the complexities of wealth, this drive to build a legacy. But before we move on to our final thoughts, we want to leave you with something to consider.
A question to get you thinking.
We've seen how these billionaires are using their wealth and influence to shape the world. But what do you think the responsibilities of such immense wealth should be? Does it inspire you to innovate, to invest, to give back in your own way?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And remember, you don't need to be a billionaire to make a difference. Every act of kindness, every effort to make the world a better place, it matters.
Absolutely. So go out there and make your mark. The world is waiting.
It's been quite a ride, hasn't it? Exploring the lives of these 10 extraordinary individuals. I gotta say, I'm kind of left with this sense of, I don't know, awe at what humans can achieve when they set their minds to something, you know?
Yeah, I agree. It's really a testament to the power of ideas, innovation, that relentless pursuit of a goal. It's pretty remarkable.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to sort of shift our focus a bit. Away from the billionaires themselves and more towards what their stories tell us about the world, you know?
That's an interesting way to look at it. Their journeys, they offer a unique perspective, a way to examine the forces that are shaping everything around us in the 21st century.
Like, for example, the dominance of technology. It's undeniable, right? In wealth creation, I mean. It makes you wonder, is this sustainable? What are the consequences, the good and the bad, of having so much wealth concentrated in the tech sector?
Those are some big questions, and I think they point to a much broader conversation about the role of technology in society as a whole. We've seen how it can be a force for good, connecting people, driving innovation, improving lives in so many ways.
But we've also seen the flip side. Data privacy, misinformation, the whole ethical debate around AI, it's a lot to consider.
It is. It's a balancing act, figuring out how to harness the power of tech while minimizing the risks. And these billionaires, they're right at the forefront of it all. Their stories offer some valuable insights, I think, into this really complex landscape.
Another thing that really struck me was this whole concept of legacy. It seems like a lot of these individuals, they're driven by this desire to create something that will outlast them, something that will have a positive impact on the world long after they're gone.
It's a pretty profound shift, I think, from that traditional idea of just accumulating wealth for personal gain. These folks, they're thinking bigger. They want to leave a lasting mark on humanity.
Yeah, whether it's Bezos's 10,000-year clock, Musk's plan to colonize Mars, or the philanthropy of Gates and Buffett, they're all trying to shape the future in pretty significant ways.
And it kind of makes you ask yourself, what kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? It's a question for all of us, really, not just billionaires.
Exactly. Even in our own little corners of the world, we can make choices that contribute to a better future through our work, our relationships, our communities.
The stories of these 10 individuals, they serve as a powerful reminder that we all have the potential to make a difference in our own way.
And that's a pretty inspiring thought to end on, I think.
It is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the 10 richest people. We hope it sparked some curiosity, challenged some assumptions, and maybe even inspired you to think a little differently about the world around you.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving to make your own mark on the world. You never know what you might achieve.